Right, good evening. Just a quick check if you can hear me. Because right now today we're outside, right? So if you can hear me, just type in one so that I know the audio is fine, and then we can get started from there. Right. Okay, cool. I think should be fine. Okay, good. Seeing everyone is able to hear my audio, yeah. So there might be a bit of a background sound, but I hope it's still good. Okay, because today we're basically at Penang, and we're also having just one sharing session offline just before this weekly market analysis over here. So I'm actually still at the venue downstairs. Okay, good. So we'll get started as usual. So let's take a look at the overall events for the week, and then I'll jump over to the charts and to share with you some of the analysis and some of the opportunities that we can keep an eye on. Okay. So first up for this week here, you can see basically for today there are a couple of holidays. Okay. From the bank side, so generally market are just going to be slow, but if you actually observe, there are some good movements from the yen side of things, so we'll look at it later on. And then later part of this week, I think the primary focus is all the way until Friday, where we have our NFP. So the usual non-farm payroll, unemployment rate, and average hourly earning from the US. I think that's going to be the focus for this week. Okay, so over here, the expectation we are seeing right now is that unemployment rate is expected to increase from 3.4 to 3.5, and the average hourly earnings is expected to drop from 0.5 to 0.3. Okay, so this is actually a sign that the expectation over here, if of course the actual one actually drops for average hourly earning and unemployment rate actually rises, that's starting to indicate that the economy is weakening and it's starting to show sign of a potential recession maybe coming into the end of this year, early next year. Okay, so I think this data here, definitely you want to keep a very close watch and keep track of it from month to month to give you some sign and indication as to whether we are going to see a recession soon. Okay, so definitely you want to pay very close attention to the upcoming data over here. And of course, any major deviation and surprises from the actual and the expected one, we're going to see a bigger volatility and a bigger move in the dollar related pairs. Okay, so with that in mind, we're going to look into the charts over here. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the dollar index. Now, dollar index over here, recently we have seen a pretty significant move, right? So if you take a look at this is start of the month in May. So for the entire month of May, we actually see the dollar strengthen quite significantly. And right now, from an Elliott Wave point of view, we may be seeing the end of this entire piece, wave 5 here potentially completing soon. Okay. Now, if I bring out my RSI indicator, we are not seeing some kind of a divergence yet, but we are starting to see a potential sign. Okay, so you can see this peak is somewhere here. Now, if this goes up a little bit more, RSI unlikely is going to push up and break that high, so we're likely going to see a divergence from there on. Okay, so this is where we're going to see that divergence built in, and combining with wave 5, naturally that would be a nice little 5-wave structure completed, and we can expect a pushback down. Okay, now having this in mind, and you combine it with the upcoming major news on NFP and unemployment rate, right? So if you can see, the actual data actually comes out as what expected, and if it's worse off than that, we may do see a sell-off in the dollar. Okay, so that is where you may get a very nice little confluence between technicals as well as the fundamental news aspect of things. Okay, so right now I would say this week, probably for the major part of the week, you'll be quite neutral on the dollar and potentially looking for a reversal soon. Okay, wait for the cross structure to develop, wait for the divergence, and we'll probably get a sell trade by, if you're looking at news trade, right, you may get a sell trade for NFP, and if not, okay, you may need to wait until maybe next week to jump in after some clearer move in the market itself. Okay, so that's the dollar price point. Now, if you go over to the euro, of course, it's kind of going to be inverse, and we did see the euro actually come down quite nicely, potentially completing a five-wave structure here as well. And same thing over here, a divergence may be building. Okay, so you can see here extreme low. So if this continue to come down a little bit, we may start to see the divergence. Okay, so this is quite nicely inverse related with the dollar index right now. Okay, so euro dollar here, same thing. My suggestion is be patient, wait until maybe on Friday. If you're trading the news, there may be a potential reversal trade back up. Okay, and if you are not trading the news, then you will likely need to wait until maybe next week to get a potential short-term buy on the euro dollar side of things. Okay, so you can keep an eye on this pair here for news trading. Now, pound dollar, we are looking slightly different. So pound dollar here, we may, from my point of view, we may get a temporary kind of retracement back up, but I think overall longer term, I'm still actually interested in the sell. Okay, so any buy on pound dollar would likely be a short-term potential setups. And once we are able to get it somewhere back towards like 1.2495 to 1.2550, this area here will be a nice little sell opportunity. Okay, of course, we want to see it come out correctively, then we can look for a sell trade. Okay, so short term, if you're interested in the buy trade, right, you can look out for it. Target around 1.2495 to 1.2550. And then if you're more of a swing trade, you know, you want to wait out for this area here to look for a sell. So pound dollar would be quite a straightforward structure right now, right? So from this little high, we kind of get an impulse drop, following that a crawl. So this would likely be a leading diagonal, and then we are expecting a three-wave kind of corrective structure, and we expect one more drop. Okay, so swing traders looking for this, short-term traders look for the short-term buy first. Okay, so that's on the pound side of things, which again may align quite nicely with NFP if let's say the dollar weakens. Okay, we get this move this week, and then maybe next week we start to look for a sell. All right, so that's on the pound side of things, pretty clear cut. Aussie over here, last Friday we did get a completion of a three-wave move. Okay, so from this peak you can see 1, 2, 3. We hit our fips very nicely here as well, and then this is a running flat in the middle. Okay, so right now we're after a three-wave move, usually we can expect a bigger corrective structure pullback. Okay, so if I'm gonna put in the fips around 50 and 618, right now we're neutral, but basically we're expecting a bigger corrective move that can develop into something like this. Okay, so I would suggest to give it a little bit more time. Again, this little piece here is not a buy, it's not a sell. Just stay out of the market for Aussie dollar right now. Okay, but if let's say end of the week, okay, you see this corrective move develop by Friday or Thursday, definitely this would be a sell trade opportunity. Okay, now if this here starts to develop into a crawl going into, let's say, Thursday, Friday NFP, right, then you can consider a buy trade up as well. Okay, so overall I think most of the major pairs are pretty much aligned with DXY. Okay, so keep track of DXY. It may give you a bit more clue as to going into NFP, do you want to focus on the buy or the sell if you're trading the news itself. If you're not trading the news, then my suggestion is wait for the news to be released. Then only you look for some kind of confirmation of a direction maybe next week. Yeah, dollar Canadian here, we are kind of getting very close to the top. Okay, we have the fips here, so potentially you can see 1, 2, 3, and of course what we have is also the channel structure. Okay, so if you can get a crawl here, we'll be interested in the sell. Okay, buying around this area is, for me, is not suggested. It's not recommended to buy around the area because we can't have quite a bit of resistance, right? Unless we get a very nice little break above, and then we get a consolidation up there. Okay, then from there we can look for a buy. Okay, until then I would primarily be looking out for a sell. So somewhere between neutral bias to a slightly bearish point of view. We just need a little bit more clarity in terms of structure, right? Because right now we have a V shape here, definitely not a sell, but if we get a crawl, okay, that's a sell. Okay, so a lot of majors, again, you can see it's a neutral point of view because we're basically waiting for some structure to develop, right? So it's an early stage right now. It may take another 2 to 3 days, which builds in quite nicely with upcoming NFP. Okay, so this Friday's NFP may be quite interesting to keep an eye on. Okay, so if you're kind of like looking for some news trade opportunity, I think this month or is it June's NFP would be quite nice. Okay. And then we have the dollar yen here, which is also again neutral point of view because we're just entering that key territory. Again, you can see the structure, you know, channel at the top, Phipps level, three wave expectations being met. Internally, we have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. RSI over here, we do have a little bit of a divergence already. Okay, so you can see from this peak to this peak, we're basically getting lower for RSI, but price point is going up, right? So that's the divergence. So again, from this point here, we are looking at potential reversal, but right now it's a little bit early. So what I want to see is a first nice little rejection, okay, some kind of momentum push, and then we see a correction, maybe on the 1 hour chart. That would be a nice little sell for the dollar yen. Okay. So we are neutral now, a little bit patient on that, but if you can get an impulse push down, we'll shift to bearish, and then we'll start to look for more downside. Okay. Now dollar yen here has a very nice little downside opportunity, even if you go to the daily. Okay. We can see that, you know, from a daily point of view, we have a very nice little impulse, and then 1, 2, 3. So if this is indeed the peak of it, and we start to show sign of a reversal down, right, we can actually look for huge downside opportunity, right? So this can come from weakness from the dollar in combination with the strength from the yen. Okay, so whatever reason it is, we probably don't know it yet, but it may be coming from NFP starting it off. Okay, NFP being the first catalyst. If the economic data is very, very bad, you know, we may shift the expectation from, you know, maybe one more hike to maybe no hike, and then potentially talking about cutting rates, right? And then of course for yen to strengthen, it's likely going to come from a sentiment point of view. You know, right now we don't have it, but again, certain things, especially from sentiment, we won't be able to pre-plan too much, because sentiment move again is mainly when there's a surprise element. We get a bigger move in the market. Okay, so keep a close look on dollar yen, especially if you're also long term, swing trade to long term. Okay, because if you can get this down move here, it's gonna be a pretty interesting one to really pay attention to. Okay, so that's on the dollar yen. And then we have gold. Okay, so gold over here, from Elliott Wave point of view, we may potentially complete the 5 wave, right? So very simple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 and 5 has a very nice little divergence. Okay, and therefore right now we're expecting a 3 wave pullback potentially towards 2000 and 2025 area. So if you're interested in this move up here, it's going to be a short-term one. Okay, unless we're going to get an impulse correction, and then this breaks through that very strongly, okay, then we can expect this is the bottom. But until that, any buy, you may want to maybe consider taking partial profits or even full profit out of it. Okay, so gold here, no setup now, but again, if things starts to move off impulsively, you start to look for a small correction, you can look for a short-term buy. All right, so that's on gold. Definitely not selling it at this moment, because 5-way structure done, divergence here, at least expect some kind of a pullback. Okay, so if you want to sell, just be patient. Crude oil is basically doing a potential expanding flat. It's taking quite a bit of time, but this little move up is quite slow, right? So for me, there's a good chance this will come back down first and then go back up to complete the 1, 2, 3. Okay, so if you're kind of trading crude oil, this week here, you may get an opportunity if you can get price to come down a bit more towards like $69.20. Look for the buy. Your target here potentially around $79.30. Right? So this one quite clear in the structure. Okay, if you're trading crude oil, this little peak broke that. So we expect this move down to break this as well, to complete the expanding. Okay, but of course, if you don't get it to be down here, this can just come down and then move, and then this would still be a running flat. Okay, so bias on crude oil is quite straightforward. We're basically bullish on crude oil. The only thing here is, what is your setup to get involved in? Okay, are you looking at here, or you wait for a breakout? You definitely need to have, of course, your plan, right? Your trading plan to get involved. You need to have your go-to setup to get involved in the trade. Okay. S&P. So last week, ending off that week, we have a very nice little push up, right? So again, we can see how nice the structure is. 1, 2, 3, retracement, V shape. Any pullback correction would be definitely a buy trade, right? So S&P short term, any pullback, continue to look for upside. Target here is around 4,300 level. Okay, if you get a V shape back down, then of course this will probably turn into a bigger correction before the move up. So take note of it, right? When we say we want to see a pullback correctively, we want it to come down slow. Okay, it shouldn't come down too fast. Yeah, so that's on S&P trade plan, right? If you get a corrective, look for upside. If this comes down very strong, expect a little bit more downside, maybe breaking the previous low before another pushback. Okay, so that's the view on the S&P. Now, Bitcoin here has a very nice little gap up this morning. So very nice. If you manage to get involved in the buy, I think we did talk a little bit about it last week. From this structure point of view, I actually took profit off the buy trade for Bitcoin this morning. So if you're in it, I would suggest maybe you want to consider taking partial profits or even just exit first. And for me, I'm still bullish, but I'm basically waiting for a nice little corrective pullback. Okay, so let me update the label. Okay, potentially what I'm seeing over here is this may be a WX1, right? So a three-wave up move. And if I can get again a simple three-wave correction back down, then that's where we will look to buy for the upside. Okay, so I will consider, and even suggest you can consider to take like partial profits or just take your entire buy trade off if you have it. Wait for this pullback, get in again. Okay, so you can maximize this profit potential here. Okay, so that's on Bitcoin. I think ETH is pretty more or less the same, right? So ETH, right? So you can see the gap, right? Same thing here. If you got involved in any buy on ETH, I would suggest again partial profit, take profit, wait for the pullback, look for another buy. Okay, yeah. So those are the few trade potentials and overall market outlook. Good. Okay, quick one. Any questions that you guys have? Okay, we kind of have about like 10 minutes here. Any particular instrument you'd like me to share my analysis on, or any particular question you would like to clarify? Okay, feel free to just put it into the chat box, right? Okay, James here says, can we look at Hong Kong 50 HSI? And then Dan here asks, NFP seems more likely to have bullish on DXY, wouldn't it? Okay, so let's take a look at HSI first, yeah. Let me go over to Hang Seng. Okay, let me do a quick update on this. Okay, so it broke that previous low here, so this level would probably need to be updated. Good. Okay, so let me do a quick check. Okay, so Hang Seng broke that previous low and is currently doing that simple 1, 2, 3 around that 1, 2, 3 level. My suggestion now is if you are looking for potential setups on Hong Kong index, wait for a mini impulse first, okay, and then following that a correction to get involved in the trade. So basically what we have here is fast drop, corrective move. Initially we were expecting this corrective move to develop further before they drop, but didn't really happen and it just dropped, right? But basically right now this is an impulse. Don't buy, don't sell. Okay, wait for a sign here first. Now if this, as I mentioned, go up fast, wait for the correction, you look for upside. If this does correction here, then we can actually expect a little bit more downside, right? So what can happen on this is then this would be one wave, this can be the second wave, and then this can be still developing the third wave down. Okay, so this week development may give you a little bit of clue what you can expect for Hang Seng Index maybe going into next week. Okay, so that's on HSI. Okay, so Tan here asks, the NFP seems more likely to have bullish on DXY, right? Not necessarily. Like, so I go back to the calendar over here. You can see that the expectation on the upcoming US data is actually quite to the downside. Okay, so you can see average hourly earnings expectation is lower. NFP expectation is lower. Unemployment rate is higher, which is not good. Okay, so generally the consensus on the US economy is actually not that positive. Okay, so a kind of like significant weakening of the economy would release some pressure from the Fed in hiking and potentially start talking about cutting rates to prevent, you know, too bad a recession. Okay, so that itself would definitely be, I would say, would definitely have a negative impact on the dollar index from a fundamental point of view. Okay, but of course we won't know exactly what's going to happen on the DXY, right? Because the actual data nobody would know. So what you can do again, you know, what I do is always combine the technical analysis to see if we can get a confluence of a setup direction, and then use the news as a surprise element to write the volatility of it. Okay, so that's usually the suggestions that I will always have. Yeah, so that's on question on NFP. Stephen asks, yen pairs potentially turning this week. Maybe, I mean, this morning, you know, some of these yens are coming down, but again, Monday market movement usually I'm not so convicted to it. So you see dollar yen comes down a little bit. Euro yen of course comes down. Hong yen came down as well. Aussie yen came down as well. So most of the yen is, I mean, yen pair is coming down, but one day of kind of like little movement like that does not give us sufficient data point to actually work on. And in addition to that is we are in a Monday market. Okay, so I wouldn't be too conclusive as to whether the yen pairs are gonna fall further from here, from just today. Okay, but of course we just keep look at it. If let's say tomorrow we continue to get some momentum down, then we start to see a little bit of a V-shaped rejection to the downside, then yes, okay, we'll definitely be more interested in downside. I mean, for me, I'm actually overall looking at selling yen pairs. Okay, so I'm bearish on the yen pairs. The thing is, of course, we just need setups to get involved in the trade, right? For some of this, I'm running it, right? So I've like sell on dollar yen, I've sell on Aussie yen. I also have sells on the pound yen. Okay, so overall, I'm actually bearish on the yen. Okay, the question is just, you know, are we gonna get a drop now, or you know, we just need to reassess it when price gives us a bit more information. Okay, yeah. So I hope that helps to answer the yen pairs. Okay. Jason asked, can we take a look at BTC? Yeah, I think we covered BTC, right? So generally I'm bullish on it. Okay, but I would suggest take some partial profits or even close it and wait for a pullback to get involved in another buy again. Right? Vader asks, Kiwi Yen, is it on the sell? Let me take a look at Kiwi Yen. Yeah, okay, I would say Kiwi Yen definitely bearish. So this is an impulse 1, 2, 3. You can wait for a little bit of a pullback. Okay, alternatively, you can look for a breakout. Okay, so this one here, I think the setup is quite clear. What we have over here is also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Potentially this structure is done. You get an impulse, you get a correction, you look for a sell. Okay, so the direction on Kiwi Yen is quite clear. Focus on the sell. It depends on your setup, right? You look for a break, or you wait for another pushback, a retracement, you look for entry. Okay, so that's how you can look out for Kiwi Yen. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I keep pressing the wrong button. Hey, Shaggy here asks, how effective does correlation affect the dollar pairs? Okay, I wouldn't use the word effective to describe it, okay, but what I would say is I see correlation as some kind of a risk management technique. So if I have too many trades running in the same direction that are positively correlated, then of course I need to manage the positions. I need to manage the risk, right, and the exposure. Sometimes you can also use correlation as a kind of confirmation, right? So for example, like dollar index, if this were looking for potential sell, then we kind of get some nice little buy setup on some of this major here because dollar weakness, euro dollar, pound dollar, Aussie dollar will probably bounce. Dollar CAD will probably come down, dollar yen will probably come down. So we kind of get that confluence, right? So they are kind of aligned in a certain direction. That give us what we call an alignment or confluences, right? So you can use correlation as that as well. Okay, but don't use correlation purely for a trade decision, right? Don't say that, oh, dollar index is dropping, therefore I buy Aussie dollar. Okay, it doesn't make sense. But you can say, oh, dollar index is dropping and Aussie dollar seems to be giving me a buy setup, so we get a nice confluence, right? So we use that for correlation, but I don't use correlation just to trade. Yeah, so I hope that makes sense. Okay. Cool. Okay, so those are some questions I get from the Zoom participants. There's some question coming in from YouTube side as well, right? So Moose is asking, what are the weakening factors affecting most indices since last week? Not all, right? So just now we look at Hang Seng, it went down. I mean, China stocks probably came down as well. But S&P went up. Okay, so I mean, each country indices would have its own factor in mind. Of course, A50, which is China shares, and Hong Kong, they are quite closely correlated, right? So this is not surprising, right? I mean, we've been covering that with this structure, there's a good chance China shares would fall lower. Okay, and we did project Hong Kong share to drop a little bit as well. Just we didn't expect it to drop so low, right? But we did expect it to come down. So you can see it's not all dropping. US market is doing a little bit better as compared to maybe China or Hong Kong. If you're looking at the German DAX is range, okay, even potentially some of the traders may start to say, hey, is this a head and shoulder for German index, right? German DAX, okay. Yeah, so I think there is no kind of like direct answer as to like what is the weakening factors that's affecting the indices, right? Because some of the indices are coming down, some of it are going up. If you're trading the indices, you need to study a little bit into the country itself, right? Like why China share is falling. It might be some political issues, some domestic reasons. So I don't trade the A50 in Hong Kong, right? So I personally don't track them very closely. So I probably wouldn't know what's the reason. Okay, but from a technical point of view, that's where we can get some clue in terms of the direction because of the patterns. Okay, so I hope that helps. Okay, another question I see from Jay. CAD Yen is currently sitting within the 15 and 618 after a pullback move. Can we check if in that case or it will move towards the right? So basically, CAD Yen here, you're asking, is it a good time to be considering a sell? What time frame are you looking at? Okay, probably you're looking at oh, okay, I think you're asking, in terms of this here, right? Or maybe you're taking from this low. Yeah, you're probably taking from this low. Now, I wouldn't be buying this up. Okay, the simple reason is because on a 4-hour chart, this here is a lack of momentum structure, right? So you can see the price went up. But this entire piece to me is something that I would be very careful in buying up. Okay, so CAD Yen here, my take is if you're looking for buy, just be very, very careful because usually a move like that has a higher chance of falling, right? Again, it's not all the time, but there's a higher possibility this will probably come down a little bit more. Okay, so for that reason, um, you probably want to just be careful on the buy. Okay, oh, you mentioned monthly. Yeah, okay. So if you're looking at monthly, then I think it's quite clear to sell, right? I mean, this is like impulse, like 1, 2, 3. So yeah, I mean, you can then combine, what you see on a monthly to what I mentioned on forward. So kind of then confluence the overall direction. Yeah, so I mean, definitely, if you can get a sell setup, you want to focus on that direction if you're referring to the confluence between monthly and the lower time frame structure over here. Okay, question about that ceiling. Will it weaken the USD further in the long run? The keyword no debt limit sounds like more money printing on USD, which is negatively impacting the dollar. The answer is yes. Okay, I mean, we're talking about potential de-dollarization here. Okay, where if they keep raising the ceiling, which they probably will, the money supply of the USD is gonna keep increasing, and yes, okay, I mean, the value of the dollar is gonna eventually drop, and at some point in time, de-dollarization may happen. Okay, but of course, those are very, very big picture fundamental perspective. Okay, so you may need the technical to also to guide you in terms of like entry, your stops and your targets, etc. Right? So yeah, you're right in that fundamental talk flow. Okay, so last one here I see is from Ibrahim, asking about pound New Zealand. Okay, quick one here. I think what I'm seeing on pound New Zealand is we are testing this little top. Okay, we can't get a little bit of a break here, but I think this structure is eventually likely turning into a crawl. We do have the divergence developing already. Okay, so I would say primary projection here is look for reversal. Okay, so potential bigger double top, crawl pattern. Okay, so look for a sell setup. Okay, so that's on pound New Zealand. I mean, your safe target for sell would be somewhere like this. You can even look for the previous low here, right? So maybe TP1, TP2. Okay. Chill is asking, would the tech and semicon stocks continue to rally on the AI trend? Very, very likely, okay? Because AI trend, one of the raw materials required for AI development is semiconductors. So the entire space would likely see a little bit of bullish momentum. Okay, so you can definitely look into stocks that deal with AI products. Okay, you can look down the supply chain. So like NVIDIA provides the chips, right? So it's actually down the supply chain, right? So like if you talk about maybe AI, okay, maybe one of the top line company will be Facebook. Okay, and then if you go down the supply chain, it's like who provides the materials required to develop AI, products. Okay, and that would be NVIDIA, right? The chips itself. Right, so yeah, the entire industry, because of AI, okay, the entire industry chain, supply chain, value chain, definitely can look into that. Okay. How do we buy them in dips, right? So you need to look at the charts to give you a little bit of clue as to which is the price point to really get involved in it. Like the video, this is a strong gap, right? There's no reason to be buying immediately at the top. You may want to wait for a pullback. Okay, so maybe the video, you need to wait a little bit while if you're not in it. Semiconductor. Another one is TSM, which recently like gap up as well, right? So you can see a lot of all these semicons are benefiting from the trend. So again, don't buy at the top. Okay, this is definitely a very nice little clean break out of the flag, right? So the idea here is you wait for a pullback. You can of course use a bit of bits and things like that. Can give you some with a strong gap up like that in stocks, okay, the pullback may not be that deep. So maybe this one here, around like $96, $97. Okay. Yeah, to me, I think like NVIDIA and TSM is more the obvious semicon stocks that I'm looking in. I'm holding NVIDIA, right? So for those of you who are following the momentum stocks portfolio, NVIDIA is one of the stocks. TSM here is not so much on riding the momentum, but TSM I'm riding it from a dividend point of view. Okay, so again, this one here is a very good opportunity for more upside potentially. Okay, so yeah, so definitely, right? I mean, these are companies that are benefiting from it. You don't want to get it at the very top after an impulse, so you combine the technical analysis to look for a go-to setup so that you can lower your risk, getting a better price point, and maximize your risk to reward ratio as well. Yeah. Can we do dollar cost averaging? You want to be also quite careful with it. I mean, if your main philosophy of getting involved in the AI companies is for momentum, for capital gains, right? Then dollar cost averaging may be quite risky move, okay? Because the philosophy of momentum is you're not so much looking at just the pure fundamental of the company, right? You're looking at price movement. So you don't want to dollar cost average in the long run, right? So momentum trades are usually shorter term perspective. But for example, like TSM, yeah, I mean, you can combine the philosophy, right? Like TSM, to me, it pays off good dividend. It's a pretty strong fundamental company. It's in the AI space. So I'm quite comfortable in dollar cost averaging on TSM, right? Versus maybe NVIDIA, I would probably not do dollar cost averaging on that, okay? But NVIDIA would mainly look at it as a trade, okay? So it depends on each company and your investing philosophy, okay, when you're getting involved in a particular trade or a particular stock. What's your primary thesis, right? Is it for longer term dividend? Is it a combination, or is it purely momentum? Okay, so I hope that helps. Okay. Okay, quick one here from Mary. We look at C3.ai. C3.ai. Okay, this is a fairly new company, I think. It's actually not, but the price point has dropped quite. Oh, it's fairly new. Like last year, it got listed, right? Oh, sorry, 22-1. So got listed, it dropped all the way from a peak about 200, close to 200, right? It dropped all the way until like 10. Right now it's potentially breaking up. Okay, I think such a company, you probably want to look into the fundamentals of it. Okay, definitely I mean, the earnings here seems great. This one here is down, right? So my direct thought process here is, when I see something like that, I just want to be very careful because, again, a company listed usually does this. So you want to look at whether this fundamental is still strong. Is there a reason to hold it for long run? But of course, the downside is quite limited, right? If you get in at 30 plus, the worst case scenario, the company deletes, go bankrupt, you lose $30 per share, right? So the downside is quite limited, but of course the upside can be quite huge, right? Because we are at a very low price point. Technical point of view, you can consider a breakout area for maybe an entry, okay? But such a company, definitely you need to go into the fundamentals of it. Okay, you need to be quite confident and quite convicted to the upside if you're interested in companies like that. But technical, definitely bullish if you can get a break here, right? So kind of simple impulse correction breakout. Okay, so this is on that. Okay, Wei Jie here, XRP Ripple, yeah. Okay, Ripple. Okay, Ripple, my analysis here is not a very kind of like immediate bullish. We'll get a break of this. But I'm not very confident in this little move. Okay, it can still look quite corrective, and this can still drop before the push. Okay, so my suggestion is if we can get a clear correction along this trend line, we can then look for more upside, right? But if we don't get that, you know, if you just see this here like that, you just want to be careful. This can come back down before the move, right? So you probably need a bit more time and see what's going to develop next on XRP. Okay, okay, so I hope that gives you an idea, but I think this will need some time, right? I mean, like this week, probably just wait out. Next week, you see how it's gonna turn out in terms of the pattern. Cool. Okay, so that's all from me for today. I hope today's session here can give you some ideas. Great kind of interaction as well, right? I mean, some of you are into stocks, indices, crypto, so that's great. Yeah, so that's all from me. All the best for trading this week. Okay, and as usual, we'll see you guys next Monday again. Okay, so see you guys. Bye bye.